please.
Okay, Member Chapelier,
Present.
Member Siegel,
Present.
Member Verdelli, Member Zarelli,
Present.
Member Cornfeld is absent. Vice Chairperson Greenwald
Present.
and Chairperson Riami
Present.
and Assistant Finance Director Matthews
Present.
and Town Manager Labadie. Thank you.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance, please. Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we need to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments? Hearing none. The first item is to approve the minutes of June 24th, 2025. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Unfinished business, we have none. The first item for new business is to nominate a chairperson and vice chairperson to serve one-year terms ending March 19th, 2027. So I open the floor for nominations, and I'd like to be the first one. I'd like to nominate Dr. Greenwald for chairperson. I have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Are there any other
Aye.
nominations?
Aye.
Excuse me. Okay, there weren't any. So, the next one is vice chairperson. Are there any nominees? Anybody want to do it? I'm sorry. Okay,
I accept.
all right. Any other nominations? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Great. Next will be the financial overview of fiscal year 2026, covering the period of October 1st, 2025 to January 31st, 2026.
Good morning, everyone. Chairperson Riami, members of the board. This morning, I'll be giving you a brief summary of our unaudited budget versus actual budget expenditures for fiscal year 2026. This covers a period October 1st, 2025 through January 31st, 2026. The data indicates that both revenue and expenditures are tracking with the town's budget targets for this time frame. Overall, the town's financial performance reflects a commitment to management's careful fiscal management and continues on with this progress to its financial planning goals. I'll first begin, and you have the financial data in your agenda packets. I'm going to start off with the general fund. The general fund remains financially strong. As of January 31st, revenues total 13.5 million, representing approximately 73% of our annual projections. The primary driver of these upfront revenues was driven by ad valorem taxes, which accounted for 84% of the projected amounts that were expected in for this fiscal year. This reflects the seasonal nature of property tax collections, and it explains our strong revenue position at this time. On the expenditure side, the general funds total 5.9 million, or 30% of the annual budget. Based on the number of months in the year, we would be around 33.33% since we're 1/3 of our fiscal year. This level of spending is consistent with the historical patterns at this point in our fiscal year, except for certain capital projects that are scheduled later on in the year. Again, the general fund's current position reflects strong liquidity, controlled spending, and no unusual budgetary pressures at this time. The next fund I'm going to dive into is our discretionary sales tax. The Palm Beach County Infrastructure discretionary sales revenue concluded on December 31st, 2025. So after that point in time, we will no longer be receiving revenues. However, there was a month in the back, and we received that as of January 2026. The total collections exceeded our expectations by over 20%, so that puts us in a strong financial position as far as that fund. So it's favorable, and our capital funding position is better because of that $20,000 increase. The next fund I'm going to dive into is our building department fund. The building department continues to perform well. Revenue total $1.24 million, or 49% of the annual projections year to date. Expenditures are tracking at $790,000, or 29% of the budget. These numbers indicate strong revenue generation relative to spending and reflect sustained fiscal stability within the department. The town continues to benefit from its interlocal agreement with the town of Gulfstream, contributing to our revenue diversification. So year to date, we are a little under projections for the town of Highland Beach. However, our revenues have been bolstered by the revenues generated through Gulfstream. So that's good for the town. We have several projects on the way, and this will impact expenditure pacing through year end. Overall, the building fund remains financially healthy and well positioned through the end of this fiscal year. I'm going to turn to the water fund at this point. After 2 of 6 bi-monthly billing cycles, the revenues are at 34% of our annual budget, which aligns with the projected billing patterns for this point in time of our fiscal year. Our expenses are at 26% of budget, indicating controlled spending of our operating costs. Some capital projects are still pending, and we expect expenditure levels to increase as these projects advance through the year. At this time, the water fund is performing in accordance with budgeted expectations. Last but not least, our sewer fund. The sewer fund generated $729,000 in revenue, or 30% of the annual target. Billing is currently just below the anticipated 33% pacing. However, it continues to fall within an acceptable range for this stage of our billing cycle. Expenditures are at $941,000, or 21% of our annual budget. And these spending are primarily due to the sewer relining projects and other ongoing capital projects for the fund. These capital investments are consistent with infrastructure maintenance priorities by the town of our long-term system sustainability. In closing, or in summary, the general fund remains robust with strong revenue collection and conservative expenditure execution. The discretionary sales tax collections exceeded our expectations. The building fund continues to generate stable revenues with manageable spending. Water and sewer are pacing appropriately based on billing cycles and capital scheduling. At this time, there are no significant variances or structural concerns that we are aware of or should be concerned about. I The town's financial position reflects continued fiscal discipline, strategic capital investment, and alignment with adopted targets. We, along with, under the direction of our town manager, Marshall Labadie, will continue to monitor our revenue pacing, capital project executions, and our enterprise funds performance as we move into the fiscal year. Thank you. I welcome any questions you may have about the information that was presented to you.
Couple things.
Sure.
First of all, thank you for the report and the data. I mean, I go through this for some years now, and this time of year, it's pretty hard to really tell where we are because it's so dependent on capital expenditures to date. So I always ask the same question, which is, do you have any concerns about what's going on and how we're tracking so far?
No concerns at all. I think we're tracking under budget as far as our expenditures, and we're tracking higher for our revenues.
Okay,
So part of what we do here is we prepare our financial statements timely. So unlike other cities where you hear nightmares of people doing their bank recs 6 months after, within a week of the month closing with our bank reconciliations, and we try to get our data in so that we can provide management with accurate information that's timely for decision making. So at this point, there are no indications. I think we're performing strong, and based on the numbers, we should do well through the end of our fiscal year.
okay. My second comment's probably best addressed by Marshall. During our last meeting, we spent a considerable amount of time talking about how well the building department was doing and the fact that they were actually spinning off money that we were going to need to do something with. And various options were discussed, including, lowering rates. More money was going to be shifted into capital projects, which, we agreed were necessary and a good use of the funds. And then there was a significant amount of discussion about possibly using some of the money for, if you will, value-added services. So part of it was possibly improving the permitting process through changes in IT, possibly doing some things in terms of, and these were just ideas that were thrown out, but additional personnel act sort of as ombudsman for people who were seeking permits to help them through the process. And since it looks as though the building department is on track and doing very well again, I just wondered if there was any follow-up on some of the discussions that we had at our last meeting.
Yes, thanks. The building department's doing well. We had a tricky quarter, or the last 5 months, if you will, in the building department, wherein the revenues from building permits, or just to say building permits and building activity in Highland Beach, has kind of fallen off the cliff. We are being buoyed, if you will, by Gulfstream, where it's more single family. And I think Jeff's put a stuff together here I'll be sharing with the commission, and I'll be sure to get it to you all. Recertification, insurance, all of these other secondary issues, I think, are having people have reservations for further investment in condo improvements. Because that's really where a lot of the volume of building permits for us comes. Not so much the single family stays pretty consistent, but when the condos stop making improvements, you'll see that precipitous fall in permits. And we are experiencing that right now, where we're off by, 70% on permits.
Wow.
But at the same time, Gulfstream's through the roof, right? Because, they do a $27 million home project. Wow, all of a sudden the permit revenue. So our model actually works well. So when the condo goes down, we have a Gulfstream holding it up. So the two balance each other, because conceivably Gulfstream could find itself at times where it just totally collapses and then our condos pick up. So we're doing a pretty good balance between the two communities. But we are seeing a drop off. Hopefully it's momentary, episodic, if you will, just kind of in the moment, and we'll start seeing that pick back up. But we're seeing a lot of fall off on the condos. We did institute the 12% reduction in fees, so we did bring all the fees down. Because again, we have some statutory limitations on how much dollars we can save for down periods. But I'm glad we do have a little bit in there. Should this slowdown have a longer reach as far as the number of permits, if it just lasts longer than we expected, the scope and scale of it. But we're kind of watching that. We're doing, ombudsman, we do meet with folks a little more often. I don't know that we've had an official position to create that. I know we had that conversation. I don't know anything really came of that as much as we do. I know the building department makes itself readily available at anybody's desire. And sometimes property owners start with me, just snowball ideas on, what their next project will be. But the condos are slowing down. Oddly enough, it could be a whole host of issues. It could be temporary in nature, but it's really fallen off. But, Gulfstream's kind of rebalancing it. So we're going to meet our goals. The budget's going to move forward. Everything's good. The trick with that sometimes is, you get a big permit, but a project takes 2.5 years to build out, and we're responsible to carry all of those inspections on that initial payment. So we're in good space. Our model is good because we can cut down. The model that we built can change with volume, which is good, rather than having every trade on staff and a full-time basis would put us in a spot where there's no work. So we can slow down the cap inspection side of it and kind of rebalance that model, which is good for us. But the building's kind of it's a tricky spot. When I got that information from Jeff, and I'll share it with you, I think it's pretty interesting where we're just, it's just like right off, So I just think, we had a couple really banner years, but I think maybe there's some fatigue, costs, special assessments, insurance, the recertification, like all of this stuff, I think may make everybody a little bit tense and defer maybe some of those other capital projects they wanted to do on the individual unit basis.
Would the concrete recertifications void it up maybe on a temporary basis and it was maybe artificially high for a period of time?
That's a good question. I don't know if they get that. I asked that to Jeff. I think it did. And we're not done. There's, we just had a presentation to the commission yesterday from the building department. We have another, smaller size condo that needs phase 2. They'll jump in, pull a permit, that'll move it back up. But again, I think he's also looking at, you could look at inspections, you could look at the trades and break it down a little bit further. And I think that's where his concern is we're not seeing it at the unit level, just the big projects are kind of coming to an end. And Gulfstream's, when they do a project, it's a big project on the single family side.
This is on now.
Yeah.
First off, the Gulfstream Highland Beach is a good hedge. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Smart move. I mean, the combination of the high rises with the high end single families give you a natural hedge in the marketplace. Second thing is I think it's basically been COVID fatigue. I mean, during COVID, we had a massive influx of people. When I bought, money was cheap. Everybody was like, hey, let's just do it. Let's get it done. I mean, so right now, you even talk to the realtors and stuff like that. I mean, it's not the first thing they'll tell you, it's not COVID anymore. And I think there's just been a slowdown. And I think that will pick back up again once interest rates correct. But no, I think that's just the natural. I mean, we were flooded. I think exactly what you said. It was an overreach in the beginning. We were flooded with all these opportunities, and people came down by the Grove, and that's why remodeling was through the roof. Just my opinion, but I think the way you're hedging it off with Gulfstreams is a great idea.
It does help kind of at this point, and I think you're right. It'll pick up because if we did some analysis several years ago, and we look back at the last couple of recessions and slowdowns, and we found when there is a natural recession, Highland Beach kind of takes off. So I don't know if it's because there's money gets cheaper in a recession, contractors are a little more aggressive with their pricing, having a more affluent community to take advantage of those opportunities. Highland Beach usually has done well through those. I just think this just might be a period of fatigue on expenses. you know, especially taking over with the fire. Now we're doing fire inspections into the condos. They're doing other type of improvements on, you know, their beach clubs and, you know, water mains and sewers are starting to age out. So I think the focus is back on that versus, you know, maybe some of the kind of folks, because those are all special assessments. Maybe people are a little tired at the moment.
Yeah, to add to that.
Yeah.
Real estate in Highland Beach has slowed down. Condo sales, or condo units available has grown. So at some point, when that teeters to the point where people feel like the market's at the right level, that's going to increase the renovations, because no one's going to move into a condo and go, yeah, I love this place. Everyone does something when they move down.
That has been kind of our bread and butter. Like you say, folks will come in and they'll buy a nice condo and they'll be like, that's not the color I wanted. That's not the
There's
cabinet
always-
design. That isn't the and you know, that usually has worked well to kind of keep the building department moving forward. And again, the building department's not in a money making mode. It's just in a sense of
Right.
keeps that department kind of flush and moving because it's an enterprise fund. So it's off the books, if you will. So it's not an ad valorem piece. That'll get into a conversation. I think we in this group, especially, I think in this budget cycle is going to be a little more challenged by and that is the legislative push to eliminate or greatly reduce ad valorem property taxes on homestead properties. And we're about 42% homestead. The full elimination puts us in a real rough spot. Regardless, and I want to get beyond in these conversations, which is hard to do in today's society where everybody's a little polarized and a little politically divisive, regardless of your position on the issue, because nobody likes taxes, myself included. Nobody likes to pay taxes. So we just don't do it. This is natural. As an American, we just don't like taxes, right? However, structurally, it puts us in a structural imbalance, regardless of all the great things we do on our fiscal prudence, our spending caps, all these charter limitations we have that at times we've become frustrated with, you know, has also protected us in the long term. But when you lose, you know, 42% of your revenue overnight and it handcuffs you, you know, you could say in a good way that, you know, police and fire have to be maintained with the elimination. So, you know, and police and fire are about 85% in its totality when you think the station debt of our budget. So you lose. So basically, the quick math of it is we would probably roll down to 9 million. Our budget's at about 15. That's $6 million. 80%. And I tell the commission this: you fire me, Susie, and the rest of the administrative staff, you're still $4 million, $4.5 million in the hole, and we can only roll police back a little bit, and fire back to to last year's numbers according to the latest proposals. We're in a tough spot, and you can't raise taxes on the non-homesteads fast enough to close that gap. So there'll be some real conversations with this group come summer as to, you know, the commission, if it goes through. I mean, we won't know until the voters vote on it. It still requires 60% approval by the voters. They tried this in 2010 and 11 and it failed. 60% is a tough threshold to reach, but it's taxation. If they write it the right way, it's hard for people to say no to it. That'll challenge us a bit because some of the timelines they are saying is January of 27, it starts. You're like, wow, we get 6 months to restructure all that. And there is no supplements. Originally, the conversation said we're going to take property tax away and we're going to fill the hole maybe with sales tax or the state's surplus funds to make communities whole in some fashion. That's not part of the conversation. It's gone. Figure it out. So that's for me. Those are my restless, sleepless nights. It's pretty. The type of cuts we would have to do in a small town like this without a commercial base are very draconian. It's very impersonal. Like we just have to cut large sums, but you just the scope of the cut, you can't function either. You know, and my joke is you know, cops are good at enforcement, but they're not great CPAs. So who's doing the books? Like you can't just cut the whole thing down to the baseline, and then you still have to meet all the other statutory requirements and technical requirements. So it's going to be challenging if it goes through. I'm hoping reasonable minds prevail. I think they're going to have a special session on it where this is all they talk about.
I assume Peggy is carrying our flag and the flag or
It's a tough conversation.
really?
We've had some honest conversation. She's given me, you know, how the sausage is made. She voted for the House's total elimination bill that went through. She voted in favor of it, as did pretty much most of the Republican delegation, voted for doing that. But again, there's still a lot of political theater, would be the safer words to use, where, you know, she's indicated, don't worry just yet. This is some posturing moves politically amongst the two chambers, because the House and the Senate aren't seeing eye to eye. The governor and the House aren't getting along. So those things are in the House. Her contingent there kind of wanted a 10-year phase in to give, which would be somewhat reasonable. Like if you're going to totally restructure everything to give you a phased opportunity to adjust our model, change our business delivery mechanism, you know, figure it out, you know, not you've got 6 months and the floor comes out from underneath you. So,
And this is all precipitated by the fact that there's some bad actors here and there that
it's funny. It's funny. So, I guess this, you know, this is our home, so we can have a little more free conversation. There are, you know, it tends to do that way. The legislator tends to act disproportionately to a bad actor. We're upset with these 3 communities over X. You're all going to get washed with it. It's kind of the baby with the bathwater mentalities. We're going to wash it all out. A lot of this started with, whether you like it or not, DEI initiatives that were being spent by local governments that politically weren't palatable. The legislator, the governor's office, that created some fighting. You know, again, our model, we don't have a lot of that kind of stuff. You know, we just don't do it. And then small town saves us too. Like we just don't have the, you know, the breadth of need to do some of these other type of programs. The other thing that they're starting to have concern is tax dollars going to nonprofits. If that's a little more on the inside of baseball. A lot of communities take your general tax dollars, not here, we don't do it, take general tax dollars and then they fund community service groups, nonprofits all the way through the community. Some of that isn't being received well because what some of those groups do. But there are a handful of bad actors and everybody gets washed out. My concern is that on the coast really gets hit the hardest because we're pretty much residential. Us, Golden City down in Broward, Baymer Isle. I mean, like you think of all these cool little towns, Manalapan, Palm Beach. Palm Beach is buoyed a little bit by some of that commercial restaurant districts, the small towns, but when you really, you know, dig into your reading, these are all donor communities. You know, God bless you all. You generally are the donors to most of the political movements in the state come from these coastal communities. But there is a large contingent of leadership in the state that directly have stated communities such as Highland Beach should not exist. We should fold into the larger cities. We should fold into the county. We shouldn't exist. We're unnecessary. I contend to the opposite, especially under our Constitution, that we're a home rule state. And that's what they're trying to change. The level of attacks or the preemptive actions that the legislators taking in the state of Florida to local governments, I've never seen, heard, or witnessed when I go to talk to my national colleagues around the country. I've never seen it at this level to really shred local governments down to the bare bones. So we're in a very challenging time coming forward, especially if they eliminate it in whole. Now, if they do other things like just improve or raise the homestead exemption, right now it's, you know, 50,000. If they take it up to 300,000, 400,000, we'll be okay. We'll take a haircut, no big deal. We're prepared. We're financially sound. We're nimble. We can move. We're not overstaffed like some other smaller communities. So we can make those shifts and changes because that's not going to hit us much. Plus, our tax base is large enough where that's not a huge hit. Now, if they say, 65 and older, it's just like total elimination for us regardless, it's the same concept. So we don't know. No, the House took its position, total elimination. Can't touch police and fire. Okay, so that's where the House is at. The Senate hasn't weighed in, hasn't made any proposals. They say they're working with the governor. The governor's rhetoric is total elimination, and so he might go even further. I don't know what that is. Maybe schools. Right now, schools are exempt, school funding, taxes. Maybe he wants to go all the way and just eliminate everything. I think then it totally doesn't get 60% at the state level based on, the electorate. So,
Marshall, what is the way I read it is there's going to be a drop on homestead,
Mhm.
but then there's going to be an increase on non-homestead.
we would have to, but under statutory, there are increased caps, if you will, on non-homestead. So even though it's at a 10% instead of the 3%, accelerator each year, to make up that difference, you can't do it all in one fall swoop. Say, hey, we lost 42%, non-homestead's going up 42%. It's not directly proportional.
But
it takes a little bit of time to climb, but
it's 10% per year.
yeah, but I would imagine the commission, there'll be some combination if that comes through you can't just totally hit non-homestead fast enough. So there'll be some cuts, some definite upward movement on the millage rate for non-homestead properties. Probably elimination of some larger capital projects would be suspended. And then we would have to, we do have, budget stabilization funds. This would be definitely a budget stabilization moment where we would have to do that until we could regain some balance.
So for what I'm hearing from you is the commercial cities that do have the tax duplicate, they're not really pushing back hard.
Oh, we're all pushing back hard because there was an article out of the Associated Press out of Tallahassee. There's 116 local communities that will be structurally in a structural deficit. It's not correctable by just we're jammed. Boca's in there. We're in there. Palm Beach. I mean, there's 160, and these aren't like one-off communities that are in bad financial condition. These are well-run cities with generally, the respectable tax rates. We happen to have a very low tax rate. That probably kind of changes a little bit. But there's 116 communities that if total elimination is put in place that are subject to real financial strife. Some communities, unlike ours that have prepared and planned a little bit, could go into bankruptcy, and that could be a real bad situation for the state where many communities start to fall into, that bankruptcy state, and that's coming from Detroit through the recession. This is not a good spot. Detroit, Flint, there's a few in California that were there. That those are not spots you want to be in because you're really a community. They can't go bankrupt. So it's a weird.
I went through.
You have to go into I don't want to say like forfeiture, but you go under state ownership, and then they just basically they'll make all the decisions for you without the electorate, which is not healthy either.
We had the great Cleveland default.
Right. I mean, it's those are real things that are not healthy and good. Usually, some of the other challenges, they make statements, legislative leaders, they don't really see the unintended consequences of everything. That's the unfortunate thing. They don't listen because they don't like local government enough. They won't listen to our, concerns. We're not saying don't do something if that's really where you want to do, but let's think this through, especially if you're saying you can't touch police or fire. And then they'll say, well, just fold into the county. Well, we went through our fire experience. Delray is a couple $1 million more than what we do. The county cost is probably 3 to 4 times our cost for the same thing. a sheriff taking over your police department. They're not doing it for free. The sheriff just doesn't come and say, "Oh, we got you. You're free now. We're just gonna." No. They're gonna charge you very similar structures. They might try to say they could save you 12%, but it's not getting you to the numbers you need. So there isn't like this fallback position of safety outside of, complete annexation. But that process, they didn't remove that. They're not proposing to remove the annexation process. You still have to go and there has to be a petition to do it. The state can't force a community to do it. We changed our charter, so it's a referendum to change how we deliver police and fire. I mean, it's a really challenging.
So here's the question.
Mhm.
There's a possibility that anything could happen. What's the probability of this?
The probability of a real reduction of property tax is real. It's going to happen. I think, people tell me just to relax. I've had legislators say, "Oh, don't worry yet." Well, those are really bad advice to not, I think.
I think it's got a very high probability just looking at demographics. It's gonna go.
From the political nature of the state, there's a real good chance, but 60% threshold is hard to meet. I'll say a couple of issues. I'm not asking for anyone's opinion on the issues, but they're popular nationally that have passed statewide proposals. Marijuana, abortion, those have succeeded in other states. They failed here because of the 60% threshold. Usually 55% voter approval, you're doing great. Like I tell a candidate, you win with 55%, you're doing amazing. Well, here the threshold's 60%. That extra 5% is hundreds of thousands of people agreeing or voting to the opposite. And then you could say it's a midterm election. So there's a lot of things that are moving. It's just not a clear-cut path to success. Now, if they did a homestead increase, I could see that passing the 60% threshold because it doesn't wipe out anyone. And it does provide real help to those that need it, right? You would think the ones that are struggling can't afford to pay their bills. Well, the ones that can't afford to pay their bills, usually, not always, aren't living in $1 million home, right? They're usually struggling through rent. Renters aren't saved by removing property taxes because the business of providing apartments, their property taxes go up. So rent's going to precipitously match and go up too. So renters are thinking they're going to get a savings. They're at a loss with this too. It's a real challenge. But if you move the homestead up proportionally to say they did 300,000, well, that's real help for seniors. It's real help for those that are struggling in life to make ends meet because the cost of living, that really reaches what I would think would be a goal. But total elimination, I guess would help too. Probably all of us in the room, I guess we would do well. I'm a homesteader. I get it. It'd help. But at what cost? What's the unintended consequence,
That's gonna kill the vacation market, not, the second home market in real estate. Because a lot of Florida is second home, snowbirds.
It doesn't, it depends though. My homestead in Ohio isn't worth the paper it's written on.
Okay.
So I homestead down here
Right.
and keep my home up there. The homestead benefit in Florida is great.
So it's
compared
gonna
to other states.
stimulate the real estate market in Highland Beach?
I think it's going to stimulate changing your status to homestead. So if you've got
Right.
you all know these folks either in your neighborhood or in your condo. This isn't their only place, right? The people that have second homes, this is one of 4 or 5. They're all usually high value. They'll probably make this the homestead, right? If you no longer have to pay property taxes on a $1 to $8 million property, that's a real number, right?
So what
That's
advantage is that to the state of Florida in general, having all these people come and homesteading? I mean, what advantage, we're gonna get charged. It's gonna probably be raising our taxes for Palm Beach County, maybe?
But the county can't do it either. And that's probably the more directed target of some of this stuff is some of these larger counties. They've telegraphed their problems. And you can see it from the CFO driving around, fraud, waste, and abuse on a relatively poor financial model that they can't show us what they're doing. they're showing you what they find to be their problems, these larger cities and counties where they're saying, hey, the population grew, but you're collecting so much more because the values went up and you're spending your money on all of these wasteful services and this and that. That's what they're targeting, but we get, we're the baby in the bathwater, kind of get washed out where, we keep our taxes low. We provide the services only directed by the residents. We're like I truly believe that we are the quintessential local government that everybody wants to live in, where you get great services, you have low taxes. It's exactly what you want. You're not paying for all the stuff you are like, what is that? I don't want that. We don't do that here. And we have a cap. So as crazy as your electeds might be, or as wild as a town manager you might get, there's a cap. I can only spend $900,000 on, a $25 million, $30 million budget. That's not wild, right? But these other communities, there's no cap and they spend and I think that's the debate. Other states are doing it. Ohio's trying, Michigan's trying. I talked to some folks from Utah. They're going to go for it. They're all just kind of watching Florida to see if it can pass muster.
Yeah, it's been a hot topic in Ohio.
Yeah, it's
And-
big, like just homestead taxes, just,
Ohio's looking for elimination. Ohio's going to be school only.
that's kind of what Florida wants to be, school only or second property. So if you're a snowbird, you're going to pay, if you happen to be, you're probably, I'm thinking 40% more in taxes, local taxes, 50% more for second home folks. You can see your tax bill kind of grow like that. But those that have homesteaded, you're doing great, pretty well. Yeah.
And the 42% figure that you cited,
Yeah.
is that percentage of our revenue?
It's a percentage of our household. So you're right,
So-
it's safe. It's not,
Yeah, but
it may not be directly proportional.
that would be smaller though on a revenue basis, I would guess.
You would think, but
Because-
oddly enough, when the county did the calculation, the property appraiser's great. She's been just not political, but just said, okay, you want to do this? They ran the numbers. So the complete elimination, it's in today's dollars, it's about $4.7 million. And I look at Susie's math here. If we were in today's budget to lose, 4.7, we would take us down to right about 9 million. And if you go and look at your police and fire, their police and fire together are 12 and a half. So we're 3.5 million short just to fund police and fire. That doesn't include support services. Wonderful Susie, your wonderful town manager,
So
your wonderful town clerk. We're not in that mix. So I'm saying, like, you fire all of us, you're still $3.5 million in a hole
where are
that
we
you got to
going to
dig
get
out
the
of.
money? Where are we going to get the money?
Tax the other properties is the only option because we can't. So we've been told by the legislator in loose terms, just come up with more fees, fee driven. Well, we don't have a lot of transactional opportunities here. So if you call for a fire rescue, you better have your credit card in your hand because we're not going to touch you until you pay us $600. I mean, like I'm tongue in cheek, but I mean, like you want to go to the library to check out a book? Well,
The town
$30,
the town-
like how do you do that where it kind of works against it,
The town I grew up in, small town,
Mhm.
no tax duplicate. They charge for ambulatory. If you had taken to the hospital in the ambulance, you got a bill for $600 2 weeks later. It just happens. I mean,
we do that here. Like we can't cover the full cost or because most folks in our community are Medicare. They cover $600. If you were to calculate the fire's actual cost to do that, it's probably $2,200. Especially if we transport you, $2,200 to $2,500, we get $600. Our fee schedule says we only charge you another $200 or $300 on top of the $600, for which 70% pay it. And our model is to not chase our residents. We're not putting anybody into collections because to you all, this is why you create a fire department, not to be charged, but for your safety. So you're paying in your tax dollars for the service. Now that it's just us, we're not doing extraterritorial pickups and stuff on your dime now. So it's just us.
Well, I think what the politicians have to understand is I live in a township in Ohio. Beautiful, country-esque, horses, blah, blah, blah. But here's the issue. My neighbor's son is way up the food chain in the FBI. And Devin looks at me straight in the face and says, well, if something happens, you better be able to hold your house for 20 minutes. Because that's how long it's going to take for a sheriff to get here in the county. So you better be prepared to hold your home for 20 minutes. That's the pitfall of giving up our local police department, because they're not going to be there like that. They got to come from wherever they're at.
Well, especially if you don't pay, if you're just going to rely upon the sheriff at no cost contracts. Waxahachie Groves has tried that. And basically Bradshaw, I mean, there is some statutory limitation, so you don't have to have a police. But he's like, if something happens, it could be a couple hours before we get there because you're so far off the grid. Here, there's no substations near us because Delray and Boca clacked on. So if we were to rely on the sheriff, it would take forever. Unless you made a contract with them, then which then puts costs back onto the roll to cover your expectations of how fast you want somebody to respond. And we've been trying so hard to build the opposite model, Right. And again, we're not rolling back to pioneer days where, grab a gun, save yourself, best of luck to you. Well, that's not really what we're trying to build here. And we have that ability too, and you should be and you are allowed under state statute to do this, to create Highland Beach, to create, if you will, your bubble and provide the services as you want them. Without tax revenue though, it's going to be tricky. It'll be just a different model, but it's happening. The House already passed it. They're willing and they're fine with it. The Senate's going to be close. The governor wants full elimination. And I don't know what the and is. That scares me. The Senate's probably going to be somewhere in there too, but then it's got to go to the voters, and the voters are going to have to. I have a sneaky suspicion the Chamber of Commerce is going to come up because business taxes for business property is going to go up. And the Chamber of Commerce is going to be excited about that. That could be the and that the governor sees and says, but you can't increase, commercial property tax. It'll be something crazy like that. And then the world changes,
So all this is totally hypothetical. But
Sure.
this goes through, they eliminate property taxes or homesteaded
Yeah.
ones. Can the town have a user fee for the police department? Is that a legal thing? You go, $6 million, there's 4,400 residences in town. For $1,500, there's your police service. For $1,800 a resident, you might not do it by residence. You could do it partially by value, assessed value like we do with taxes, but you call it something else.
Well,
So like towns can have library cards. That's okay. That's a user fee. Or water is a user fee.
correct.
So could you have a police user fee? Yeah, I mean, whatever would come out. We'd argue about, well, should it be?
That's something we'd have to explore. Other places have where other states, I should say, that, you can do a special assessment. So we could potentially put a special assessment. Generally, it's under state statute. Here, though, it's for capital. Can't really do it for continuing services. You can't do a special assessment district, and you can't do a special assessment millage or do a special millage that only supports X. So it's a little challenging, because statutorily you're so boxed in from what you could use these other mechanisms for. But I think police, you're probably stuck. Fire, you could charge up to $150 a household. So that's, $600,000, and their budget's, a little over $6.
I mean,
Covers maybe the debt for the fire station, which is about $500,000 a year, but it doesn't cover the rest of the operation.
that's a state law that the most you can charge for fire services is $150.
Because there's a fire assessment fee that can be assessed up to $150 for just the fire side of the equation. So you can do that, but that's only $600,000. But hey, it's a patch. They just eliminated business tax receipts, so we couldn't go to the people that run home businesses and say you've got to pay X. So that's not available. So I mean, there's a lot of that's the challenge here, is that they've limited all. They've you know, it's like whack-a-mole, right? It pops up here, there's something over here. They've controlled those other things from popping up. So I don't want to say it's off or not. I truly believe Highland Beach will continue. It's just look a lot different or cost a lot more for some folks.
I'm trying to get just a percentage impact here.
Mhm.
Just trying to figure this out. You mentioned 4.7 million would be our revenue hit.
Yeah, that's what's the assessor in today's dollar. So it could
Okay.
adjust, you know, as we move
And so that would be 33% of our 14 million in property taxes.
Yep.
Okay, so 33% of that. But on a total revenue basis, it's about 14% of our budget. Is that the way to think about it?
You could, but it's not.
I'm just taking the 4.7 over the 33 million, our total top line.
Yeah, and if you look at the other revenues, some of those revenues are special revenues for trash. So some of those can't be used for anything else than for what it's collected for.
Right, but I'm just,
So, yeah,
you know,
sure.
for our top line, I guess it really means it's a 14% hit rather than 42.
Well, that's
or
all
33.
funds. I would take all your enterprise funds out. Building, water, sewer, it's got to come off because those are funded independently. General fund doesn't pay for any of those. Your
Yeah,
ad
those-
from doesn't pay for
Yeah,
any
I
of
got
those.
you. You don't have access to that money effectively. Is what
And
you're
it
saying.
shouldn't count towards their revenue, shouldn't count to the total revenue picture. It should just be
Yeah,
the property tax
Yep.
piece
yeah. So 33% of property tax.
as a dollar amount.
Yeah.
Where 42% number of homes qualified or properties qualified as a homestead.
Yeah, all those.
Yeah, so they're a lower ticket generally than the Snowbird. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all those other funds are user fees,
Yep.
which is why I was asking whether like you can make police or fire into a user fee, whether that's a legal option or not. Well, because we can't have property
everything's going to be
taxes.
looked into. I would say
Yeah.
that everything that's possible will be explored and pushed to the limit by communities that are probably going to be in much more dire conditions than us. What's that? Right, and they can't eliminate your charter. They're not asking for that proposal yet. Right, so we're allowed to exist. It's just in your existence, you can't tax folks in this bucket. You have to go after the other side of it.
Put tax on anybody who drives their boat down our coastal waterway over 5 knots, has to pay 100 to 1,000.
We're gonna put in like gates at the north and south end of town, and it's gonna have like
Toll
the
booth.
tolls with the change. You just gotta throw your change in there.
Which cost you $1 million.
Right, yeah.
So on another subject off of this one, so we'll
Sure,
keep the
sorry.
meeting moving. So what's happening with the Delray fire issue, you know, from the old days,
Nope, nothing.
audits, all that crap?
Nothing,
Nothing.
nothing.
I thought we wanted them, they owed us
Nothing.
money. We thought,
Nothing.
no.
It's just lying there. Doesn't mean they can't try something, but I'm not encouraging them to.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah, we're just letting it, just let it lie. There's nothing. And if you're insinuating back to the old audits and stuff, those were not financial audits. They were operational, most political theater audits that really didn't have any tangible measurements. So
Okay.
I have a
All right.
question on that subject. When the fire station was complete, we got a favorable loan for that.
yeah,
if
we
I
got,
remember correctly.
yep.
If we're running ahead in revenues, is there any plan to make that loan go away, or is it the money's just so cheap that you're just gonna let it play out?
It's so cheap, we'll probably let it play out for now. I mean, if it gets to, there's always, right, you got to find the opportunity and challenges, or find the opportunity in chaos, or don't let any downturn be an opportunity lost. Maybe we look at everything and try to liquidate as much as we can to get to a safe spot to, if you will, start over. But again, the loan is pretty solid. It's like 3.25%. Over 10 years. There's no prepayment penalty, so we could, or buy down in chunks. I guess we could sell bonds to our residents to support the town, right?
There you go. All right.
With
Our,
a negative interest rate. That's good.
our strategic priorities plan.
Sure.
25, 26.
Yeah, so what you have here, again, what we have done in the commission, and if you will, approved it yesterday, is our strategic priority plan. It lays out all of our directives for initiatives and projects moving forward. Attached as an appendix is the capital improvement plan. That kind of shows our over the next 5 years expenditures on assets over 25 grand are in there. Some of the CIP projects are more mission critical or new, so they'll be pulled up into the strategic priority plan, that being the police real-time center new entrance, the fire annex, those have moved, and the marine docking facility, those have all moved into the strategic plan as unique kind of they're very unique capital projects. They're not just replacing motors, pumps, tanks, pavement, windows, doors. That stays on the CIP as a collective. But those larger scale, high, very expensive capital projects move their way into the strategic priorities. Again, this is a dynamic document. It changes with time. Some projects, as legislation gets passed, get put on the back burner vis-a-vis signs. We were working on temporary signs. We had to put that because the legislator passed something that said we couldn't be more burdensome on land regulations. So we have to leave it. So it changes with time. We got the recommendation from Dr. Greenwald to look at a dashboard. So Madison's feverishly working on that. We have a draft now, and we'll put that out here hopefully over the next month. So you'll have a visual representation of the projects as well. Kind of think through the 3-color mechanism. Green is on track, on point. Yellow, where there's some caution, delays, change of scope or scale of a project. Red is we just hit a wall, no money. State agencies have shut us down, whatever that is. And then we'll update that on a quarterly basis. So we'll start doing that here as well. So on a quarterly basis, we'll update the strategic priority plan, the dashboard. We're going to tie that to our quarterly financial statements. And that kind of helps us move into that budget process come May, where we'll look at the 5-year forecast, which will be very unique this year because we're anticipating either complete elimination or partial elimination of revenues. So we're going to have to change that 5-year forecast to say, what do we have to do to, my goal until I'm told not to is to keep the town moving forward. So we will do all of those things in that 5-year forecast. How do we continue to provide the services as requested by the residents? And then we just start looking through that forecast, what things have to change, what kind of revenue growth do we need to see? So we have David working on that. He's done kind of more of our special projects on the finance side. He's starting to really work that model to see, we're squeezing here. Where does it pop out? And what do we have to take a look at? And then we have union contracts too. So we got to, how does that all play into it? So the 5-year forecast, which we'll start looking at in May this year, kind of is the precursor to getting into the budgets. And we'll go from there. And then if, something happens in November, I just take everything and throw it out and start over and, kind of, I don't want to say a crisis mode, but you guys will probably be meeting a little more often, let's say, because the commission will need some help and advice to, what direction do we take? Where do we go? What cuts are tolerable?
Is there something we could do about dune restoration management? I remember when I was on that board, the only thing we could do is educate homeowners, but a lot of people just don't want to do anything about their dunes. And what happens is if your dune disappears and you don't maintain it, it affects your neighbor's property, Can we start a fining committee, or can we start something to encourage homeowners? I know it's their private land, but the town could do something with the voters to make them do dune planting, pioneer plants, scrub.
Yes, yes and no.
There's
Yeah,
no teeth.
there's no teeth. The education program is starting to grow. They just had a very successful wine tasting dune presentation. That was well received. They had 40 folks there, and They had the dune breakfast. So they're doing more of that education and trying to make it a little more creative, interesting, draw a larger audience. You could look at, regulatory structure or framework to force it. It's a little bit difficult because of the dynamic nature of the dune complex itself. I don't know if I would say throw money into private property, public money into private. We have some limitations there. So that's why we're kind of more education, encouragement. It's a tricky, dunes are a little tricky. It's just, I think we just have to have people find the energy to want to do that and do that. And most of our large scale property owners are the condos, and they're starting to do those type of projects.
Is the town allowed to start a finding committee or a group of volunteers that can look into it from the Natural Resources Board to see if it's possible to make homeowners who neglect their dunes, because it really affects all of us, all the people in Highland Beach that use the beaches, protects the environment. Is there anything in the town that I'm not aware of, or maybe a Florida statute I'm not aware of, that makes
Well, definitely not the
people-
Florida statute.
Okay.
Florida won't get into that level of
Okay.
detail.
Is there something, since we have our own town charter ordinances? I know we did the sea turtle thing where we imposed on them to, at certain months of the year, they had changed the color of their lights and not allow their TVs to show bright into the ocean. Can't we do something? Because
There probably is, and we could be creative, but it's going to be in a more of a regulatory. We're instead of talking about carrots, we're talking about sticks. That hasn't been well received in this town since my tenure and from looking back further. You could, look into something like that. The commission would have to charter a findings committee. And the premise of that would have to be what we spend a lot of time on dunes. The Natural Resource Board
Right.
talks about that should be, if you will, the findings committee to start looking at other options. I would just heed caution. It's a very tricky thing to regulate.
Okay.
Um,
And the other one, SP20, the speed control, something's going on with your dock. I heard that there
Yep.
was some study that had to be done. I think it's
Well-
for manatee or sea turtle protection or something, keeping you all from building that dock. Well, if we
Yeah.
find something, then we can slow down the boats on the intercoastal, which was one of the things I always wanted to do, because from our Linton Bridge to Spanish River, those boats just create these very dangerous wakes. But I know we haven't had any deaths like we did like before we got the patrol boat. Remember when we had 3 in that one year?
right.
That's helped. Just people know, oh, there's a police boat in this strip of Highland Beach, which is helping. But
Correct. Our presence has slowed traffic and made intercoastal traffic safer. We've issued tickets. We've been present in high use periods, weekends, holidays. We're out there. It has its effect of just being present with the police boat, lights on from time to time. Just people are starting to know when you can't just fly through Highland Beach anymore. You got to be a little bit more cautious. The speeds are still pretty high. So you'd be surprised. So, a large boat at 15 miles an hour looks like it's cruising, but it's not
No.
hitting those yet. And it does create a wake. But our marine docking facility is, if I was to show you the dashboard, is bright red, flashing, screaming at us. We had a very robust conversation yesterday at the commission. I've sent official letters yesterday to the South Florida Water Management District on the permitting. What we found ourselves in a situation is what I would say is good money after bad for bad regulatory behavior on the South Florida Water Management District, because they're to the point of making an unreasonable and irrational decision to protect a resource that can't be protected. Here's the detail to it. Seagrass is regulated. For anybody on the intercoastal, your community, your home, you have to do a little seagrass. There's the stuff called Johnson seagrass that's endangered. We're not dealing with that. So we're putting a dock out through an opening we have. We're not clearing mangrove. It's pretty degraded quality soils, bottomlands. We've done 2 seagrass studies at the direction of the South Florida Water Management District, for which we found it to be a low quality. So within the seagrass found, most of it, over 80%, exists at 1 to 5% density. So it's not very present, just kind of here and there. Our project through the walkway out to where the boats would be and the boat lift, when using their formula for impacts, comes to 32.6 square feet of low quality seagrass impact. For that, they're pursuing us to undertake several $100,000 of mitigation efforts without a guarantee of a permit. They're not applying a mitigation waiver that they provide for public safety projects with de minimis impacts, which we have. So our engineer said, oh, if you want me to do all this design stuff, it's going to be yet another $110,000 in engineering. Then we have to get a seagrass expert. And then we got to get Dr. Jenkins to help us, with some of the permitting angling, for which they're saying, maybe we'll approve it, maybe we won't. And we still want offsite mitigation for 32.6 square feet, for which they'll tell us where that is. The state's foremost seagrass expert, the woman worked for the state until she retired and created her own company. It's never worked. So we're chasing a unicorn. You can't recreate seagrass beds, but they're demanding this. And we've got a project that's been funded by the legislator. So we secured an appropriation. Peggy helped us get that in place. We've got a fine grant for up to or over $1 million. So the Fine Commission, which is the Federal Inland Navigation District, has a grant program, really loves this project, wants to see our presence from a public safety perspective on the Intracoastal. So this is definitely a public service. This is not a marina, gas station. I'm not parking my yacht in the back. This is a public safety police rescue operation for which they're stonewalling us. So last year we lost our opportunity. We had to re-up or extend our grant and appropriations. And the South Florida Water Management District is, making these demands. So I told the commission, I can't in any good heart tell you to go ahead and spend all these engineering consulting dollars for designing something that'll cost us several $100,000 more to put in place for mitigation, for which we're not guaranteed a permit. And having experts say, you can't do it, it's never been done, but to put that demand on us that we'll have to be the first to try to create a seagrass mitigation bank. And then you have to manage it for 5 years to make sure it maintains itself. It's a poorly rooted plant, so it moves around. So basically forever, we're going to be trying to create a 32.6 square foot seagrass somewhere in the Intracoastal. And then we have to manage it in perpetuity or until we have 5 successful years of its growth. All unrealistic, irrational and unreasonable, because it doesn't result in a quantitative improvement to the environment for the manatees or for other habitats, macroinvertebrate populations. You name it, I could tell you about it. You can't create it for a project that's a de minimis impact, blah, 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 blah. So we're flashing red. I've put a stop or suspended the project until we can meet with the South Florida Water Management District. We've called lobbyists. We're calling our legislators. Like, this is unreal, because I have the seagrass expert who used to work at DEP and did all of this for them for the last 30 years. Dr. Jenkins, who's been doing all of Boca's permitting and North Miami, he's done a lot of stuff, both saying it seems like they have it out for you. I have a fine commissioner. Fine commissioners never do it, going to the South Florida Water Management District because he finds it unbelievable, finds it what's the team words everyone likes to use at the state? Fraud, waste, and abuse by a state agency to just blow through taxpayer dollars for no tangible result. So that project, we want to be out there, but at this point, it's not worth spending $3 million. We'll, start begging our condos to move around and build a new lift facility at a condo and just call it a day. It's not opportunity. It's not optimal, if you will. But for $3 million, no, thank you. We can't get in that business of just throwing good money after bad, taxpayer money. And that's what the fine commissioner said. He goes, this is ridiculous that you're going to have to spend $300,000 or $400,000, for which they on a regular basis issue this de minimis waiver permit for public safety projects, except for ours. So, I mean, it's really bizarre. So we're going to have to work through those channels. So that project just came to another screeching halt. Cause I'm just not going to authorize any more design expenditures. So basically they want a pre-treatment structure. So all the parking lot drainage has to go into a pre-treatment structure, dig a big hole. It's a big concrete chamber, remove suspended solids before the water eventually makes its way to the intercoastal. We've got to do some other mitigation work. We still have to possibly do the offsite stuff. I'd like, it's just to a point where it's unreasonable. It appears very irrational. So we're going to work through that, and that, again, getting to that dock project, it's very challenged at the moment. So it's flashing bright red, not good on the dashboard.
But if you offered them the fact that we would slow down the speeds on the intercoastal, that's for the, the habitat that's there and all that.
We've done that. They don't.
Oh, you did tell them that.
So we think maybe they have some crusaders, some new folks that are doing the permit work that this is the last stand on seagrass in South Florida, and we're kind of get stuck with that. But I'm hoping maybe with a little bit of push. So we've reached out to the executive director or the legislator trying to like, hey, the state's funding this. The Federal Inland Navigation District wants the project. They're going to pay for 50% of it. It's a great project. Why? And what really triggered me, because I was like, oh, we must, I mean, if we're ripping apart mangroves, Johnson seagrass was going to be displaced. Yeah, we're stuck. And I'd be telling, we wouldn't be having a conversation. We'd just be signing change orders and moving through the process. But 32.6 square feet, I've never heard of such a thing on any level. Because you think everybody like in Bellito and stuff putting those lifts in, they're at least 32.6, and they're just getting a general over-the-counter permit, not having, most of them don't have to do seagrass surveys, but it's present. It's wild.
That makes sense.
Right. I mean, folks have, even though homes that are brave enough to put their boats on the intercoastal on a boat lift, they're right on seagrass areas that we're going to. No problem. Nope. They get a permit, but
The shade from the boat kills the seagrass below, so that makes
we
no sense.
changed the surface of our dock to be light penetrating. So the sunlight gets through. So we took all of the shading impacts, redirected it to, I mean, we're talking 1% density. So we're kind of just moving our way through the seagrasses. So it's challenging.
On the,
More than you probably wanted to know, but yeah, it's crazy. It's
Very
crazy.
interesting.
on the electric vehicle stuff, I realize that Matt and David Stern are anti-EV anything.
Oh, not EV. It's where you charge said device or where you store the batteries, and batteries being stored, think scooters, bikes, you name it.
Right.
The concern is fires, and overcharging can create compromise and create these fires. And
Yeah.
that's the concern. Now, everybody can have whatever you want. It's just,
Right.
where do we
Yeah,
store
where
it?
do we-
But it's challenging. You're right. That's, I know that the vice mayor at his building have done a good job to put the chargers outside, so you're not charging in the parking garage. They're trying to tackle, if you have an electric bike, you could charge it here, but your batteries have to be stored down in this area. It's challenging. It's really tough because some folks just aren't going to go for it.
Yeah, well, I'm on the opposite end of
Yeah.
the.
So, right. So, I mean, those, and some of that came from the hurricanes we had, and like in Naples, they had a couple of those like car fires because the salt water just got into the batteries. And then once they start cooking, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, the Florida statutes say that if I want to put an EV charger in my condominium garage,
Mhm.
I can't be stopped as long as I'm willing to pay for the infrastructure to have that at my parking spot. And now, so obviously this flies in the face of what they're trying to do, flies in the face of what the state has regulated already.
So, right. So there's two faceted. One is the fire code. So the state board that does the fire code amendments has been and is slowly wrestling with this topic as to what is safe or acceptable. I'm sure there is an industry lobby that's kind of going to the opposite side. So it's going to be challenging. And then some of it wasn't saying you can't do it or this or that, just trying to get you into the best possible scenario when you do it, you know, so you don't have like garage fires or block out everybody's access to their cars, create this other collateral damage.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us to respond to a vehicle when it's in the garage. So if it does, now, you know, you don't hear about them all the time, but when it does catch fire, like we buy these, you know, $15,000 blankets we got to throw on top of the car and it just got to burn out. We can't get to it. And when it's that hot, you can't touch it because all the hydrogen gas, it's almost like a hydrogen bomb, kind of like simmering, and fire just really cooks. So we can't do anything. So we just let it and it burns out. So that's the idea, is to get it outside. So if it does do it, we could cover it, access the vehicle, can control it too. Like how we respond if it's underground and we just can't get to it. You're just going to have to let it burn. And that's the concern. So is there a balance or some recommendations? I think is probably where we'll go. I don't know that we can have, or the commission will take that directive to say, you shall do these things.
Marshall, on the EV side, for any garages, are you doing structural inspections? We found out at the hospital, we were going to put chargers on the second floor of a garage. EVs weigh so much, it was beyond the structural integrity of the garage, because the weight of the battery and the weight of everything, you've got to put them on the ground floor. So anybody that's putting these EV charging stations on the second and third floor, they should have structural stress engineers come out to look at if it could be supported.
Yeah. And it's the amount of power too. So if everybody wants their own, they'll, you know, I'm sure the condo boards are going to say, if you guys want it, it's going to be on your dime, of course. But there is the draw too. You might have to put another leg of power to go in there to support it.
Yeah, well, most of the structures around here don't have enough power for massive numbers. I mean, in my building, I maxed out the allowable ones. We just don't have enough breakers and so forth. So you have to put in 480 panels and then step down panels.
Just be cognizant that if it
glass-
does catch
glass.
on fire, we can't get to it if it's really tucked in there.
Right.
That's the like if it gets tucked into your parking garage, fire just can't. We can't pull the vehicle out. We can't do really anything once it's.
And then it gets to other cars.
Yeah, then
And then you have a structural problem in your building.
Well, those things, because it's a lot of hydrogen comes off this, it cooks pretty hot. This is
Yeah.
hotter than a normal like car fire. Like it's, and again, I'm not the fire expert. Matt could come and tell you the temperatures and this and that, but it burns at a much, much higher degree. So you can't put it out, and you can't, because it's a gas fire, if you will, or you can't just use, you have to use like a dry, water doesn't do anything like, so you need to cover it. Smother is kind of and if it's way in the back, we can't pull it out of the way so it doesn't potentially catch the secondary thing. So that's what we're just saying. If you do it, just be cautious that, you know, there's some big risks.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's where the vice mayor was like, we got to mitigate some of these risks for that. Cause I know they put theirs outside. Yours is outside.
We have our charger outside and it works very well.
Yeah.
You know, it's 2 spots and
And I think you guys require like a shut off. I mean, there's some other
Yeah.
realistic things. Like, so once it gets to charge, you turn it off, because a lot of fires come from just overcharging.
Yeah.
So you're continuing to charge it and then it overheats the battery. So some of them have these automatic shut offs. So once it gets there, it turns off.
Well,
those type of
Yeah.
those type of things.
I mean, those are permitting things, and, you know, I mean, I can argue all day about the opposite
Sure.
side to
I'm not,
this. And, but without not. you
I'm
know,
not in a
time.
position to
But,
debate the issue anyway, but I mean, like, just be careful.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm putting them, 3 of them outside,
Mhm.
you know, 2 like you have, and then a fast charger for the community to use. And I'm selling it on the fact that, hey, guess what? Highland Beach won't let anybody put them in their garages. So now we
Let's
want
go with that without actually putting it on the
Yeah.
books. Don't park them inside, put them outside
Yeah.
so we can get to them to help
Yeah.
this, you know, if anything does happen, we could get to it.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
That's all. So you're putting these things inside the garage. We were structurally zoned out because the weight of the our calculation
garage, the weight of the EVs all next to each other
Mhm.
surpassed the structural integrity.
Per square
Okay.
foot for like each of those each of those vehicles right next to each other. Yeah.
You gotta have a lot of, but anyway,
Yep.
that's a whole nother. Anyway, so are there any other,
Sorry.
things?
I just one, again, procedural type question. When you go through the strategic initiatives,
Mhm.
different advisory boards are like tasked with certain of these projects as listed.
Sure.
Who determines the timing of when these things come to this group's attention? Is that as administration is sort of teeing it
At
up?
this point, where this process continues to evolve as it catches on. I think I just did that just to show like, it could be like with the property tax. You're it. You guys are going to be tasked with what are those things along with finance department, myself, commission, like you guys will be tasked with it versus, we started that Dune conversation. This probably isn't the board apt to have that discussion, maybe natural resource
Correct.
board.
Now I'm looking through the list here
Yeah.
where it specifies financial advisory board, like under zoning district evaluation density. Well, I don't know that that's something that we're getting to
Right.
whenever it is, and there's no point in this group discussing it way in advance, so I guess what I'm asking is your team decides when that'll come to the attention of the financial advisory board, or the commission does that, or how does that work?
Yeah, I know. I know we've had this conversation. I had a few others here. You guys probably need to meet a little more often. And it looks like your heavy lifts in the summer, so cancel your vacations. Just kidding. No, no, but we got to do better with you. Dr. Green, well, we've talked CIP. Why isn't that on an annual basis coming to this board for review? It should. And it should come in May with the 5-year forecast, and the budget should come earlier. And we're trying to shift that model or redirect our model that our first budget presentation should come here and kind of get some of that guidance and advice. So when we deliver that first meeting to the commission, we could say the financial advisories had a look, expressed X, Y, and Z concerns, or take a closer look at why or this or that, so all that stuff, we need to do a better job of getting more stuff here. But a lot of it's in the summer. I know some of the schedules have been kind of wonky over the last couple of years, but summer is the heavy lift. Well, spring and summer, I should say. The hot months.
Yeah, we can be flexible, I think. I mean, we're scheduled to meet every 3 months, but if there's a period of heavy activity, there's no reason why we can't meet more often during that time and then have gaps where there isn't that much going on, like during budget season, for example.
Yeah.
If
So I
ne-
think
if necessary.
Yeah, I think once session closes here in the next 2 weeks, we'll get an idea of when property tax is going to be scheduled as a special assessment. And then I think Peggy was saying maybe April, May is when they're going to really tackle that. So, we'll start talking forecast, we'll talk preliminary budget, CIP, bring that in, and then you could meet 2 weeks later once we start seeing what that will look like from what's the ballot question, right? They can't approve anything without a ballot question. Once we know what that is, then we can really start creating our protective measures, our next steps, start mapping that out ahead of time. Hope it doesn't go through, but if it does, we're ahead of that game. We're 2 steps ahead of trying to, instead of chasing the outcome, we're a little bit ahead of it. I think would critically helpful.
They're talking about getting whatever they're going to come with ready for this November's election, the
Yep.
constitutional amendment.
Yep. So I think they can't waste too long. I hope they get stuck in political gridlock and it passes so we can at least have more time, or at least have a chance to have some level of influence or rational discussions. But yeah, so they're going to have to, do you think that deadline, town clerk, when you'd have to get something for a November election? It's 90 days? Not us. I'm saying at the state level, for the state to put a constitutional amendment on the November election, what's their deadlines? Do we know? Do they follow the same queue? Yeah, so they're going to have an answer like June, July at the latest. in order to process the ballots, get it all out there and have their time to convince everybody to do it, you know, because there's going to be some campaigning. Both sides. I'm sure the public safety unions will have some opinion-ish. They're kind of protected, so I don't know how strong they'll be. Chamber of Commerce will come out. League of Cities will come out.
Okay, board members' reports, anybody? Go ahead.
I have a couple of things that I would just like to see, Susie, on the financial reports when we get them, at least once a year at budget time. Is like some year-to-year type stuff. You know, what are our expenditures this year compared to last year and the year before that?
Like a 3-year rollback, or do you want a 5-year?
Probably 5. I mean, once
Yeah.
you do it,
Yeah.
the numbers will stay fixed. So you don't have to keep
Yeah.
recalculating them each time. You
Correct.
just drop one off. And also we had talked about at the last meeting, sometimes new projects. And for that, I would include at this point, maybe the fire department still, but certainly the Marine Patrol thing.
Mhm.
What those things are actually costing us. Because sometimes it's helpful. I mean, it's not,
More than it needs to, I'll tell you that.
Mhm.
On that
well,
one, at least.
well, the dock is, I mean, I think most people, I mean, I don't know what it's costing us, but I think most people would feel that the Marine Patrol thing was a nice value added addition that we had in terms of safety and everything and keeping speeds down. So, but it would be nice to know, well, is it really 2 extra policemen that are involved? And what is the boat really costing after the initial 160 grand or whatever is to buy it? I mean, what are the operational costs and everything moving forward?
Put on the bottom, like, engineer's cost estimate, dollars spent to date, so you can kind of see like what we spent. So I think that'll be helpful.
Yeah, and some of the projects on the dashboard, after a while, they drop off. I mean, when you're done, you're like done, but some of the financials we may want to see for a few years. Okay, like we said, we hoped that after some of the initial capital outlay, we would actually be saving a few $1,000,000 a year on our fire department. Well, we like our fire department, but are we really saving $2 million a year, or is it pretty much what it would be if we had stayed with Delray? I mean, money isn't the only thing because we're looking at the quality of the service and a whole bunch of other things. But still, from the financial advisory board standpoint, I'd be interested in seeing some of that data periodically. That's all, if we could.
Oh, I might add that. So for FY 25, we're on the audit at the moment. And we're hoping to have our audit concluded by the end of April. That's our goal. So we're actually sending over requests to our auditors, and so they're working on our audit. So
We will expect to applaud you for all your gold stars again this year.
Speaking of gold stars, we did get our GFOA Excellence in Financial Reporting Award again. So we did get that yet again. So kudos to Susie and her team for keeping us clean on those audits.
Congratulations. You should tell us that stuff. That's good.
I know we will. And then also March 24th, it's a Tuesday, 4:30 to 6:30. You're invited with a guest to our Employee Recognition Excellence Awards. Police Officer of the Year, Firefighter, Paramedic, and Employee of the Year. We have a little event over at the fire station. We'd love it if you could attend. We'll have some food, some drinks, and just kind of hang out and talk, networking, and then we do the presentations to those members. So it's a beautiful little event. You were all invited, the boards and commissions. So carve it out of your schedule, cancel your trips. Looking at you, Ron.
This will be my last meeting. I'm moving to Naples. So it's been I know. What's about this tax thing? I'm just kidding. It's been a pleasure. Over the last 30 years, I've loved being around Highland Beach and being down here. And the last 5 years living down here has been great. Just some of it's work related. Necessary to be over there. I have a client that we're doing a heart center, we're doing a children's hospital, we're doing a cancer center, and it's just sucking up a lot of my time. So it's been great. And maybe you could find another bald-headed Italian guy to take my spot. I don't know. Thanks.